My name's Anthony Tait. I penetrated into the Hells Angels motorcycle gang in the mid-'80s. I was an undercover operative. I was doing a job. I feel some of the skills needed to do undercover work and intelligence work is you need a calm demeanor. My dad was in the British Army working in intelligence, and during his time in the Middle East, there had been a contract placed on him. We moved to a small town in Alaska, and my father taught me about observation and reconnaissance and intelligence work. I wanted to be in the military, and I wanted to do long-range reconnaissance. The late 70s, I started bouncing in a group of nightclubs in downtown Anchorage. While I was working, I got to know some of the motorcycle gang members. They would come into a club, brutalize customers, brutalize the dancers. I didn't like what was going on. I was having dinner with a couple of police officer friends, and I said, you know, you guys have had ample opportunity to investigate these bikers, and you haven't done anything. And so I literally put myself on the line and said, I bet that I could get into the Anchorage Hells Angels. They said, I'll bet you can't. And I was taken up on the bet. The wager was a bottle of Scotch whiskey. Once I got involved with the motorcycle gang, one of their officers said, we'd like you to start hanging around with us. I needed to get closer to them and make them comfortable with me. And about 6 to 7 months later, they made me a prospect. While I was a prospective member, you're essentially on 24-hour call. You're doing everything from partying to witness intimidation. In July of 1983, they made me a Hells Angel member. Essentially, we just started gathering information from my law enforcement friends. On a day-to-day basis, I would see everything from drug dealing, stolen motorcycles, abuse, beatings. It was a lot larger than I had ever bargained for.
Within a very short period of time, he was a Hells Angel. He had the mentality, he had everything. It's just that he was ratting them out.
I used a lot of the training that I learned from my father about gathering intelligence. I would take everything that I got, and then I'd sit down with one or both of the PD officers, and we'd discuss what had happened. There was just so much intelligence that we actually agreed that we needed to get the FBI involved.
I did become aware that an Anchorage, Alaska chapter, Hells Angel, had agreed to cooperate with the government, and that was where I got involved. We met in a hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. He answered the door in a suit and tie.
The first time I met Tim McKinley, he seemed to be a lot more on the ball than the agents that I had been talking to. He had a sense of humor I liked, and I thought I could work with him, and it would be a good match.
One of the things that got explained to him was, we're going to be recording everything you do to the extent that it is humanly possible.
Obviously, the interest was who could he infiltrate and what could he tell us about the club.
And whether that was something that he was interested in. He said absolutely that he wanted to put as many of them in prison as he could. We settled on that he would get paid $1,500 a month.
Tony Tait was a bit obsessed, actually, with wanting to be a police officer, wanting to do good. And it sort of like dovetails into this passion/obsession with helping law enforcement.
I knew that if they were gone, there'd be a lot less crime. That was my motive, was to put them completely out of business.
The investigation using Tait It's codenamed Operation Cactus. Everything was kept very close to the vest.
The operation was to take out the major manufacturers and the people that were running the Hells Angel motorcycle gang. We went after Sonny Barger, we went after Kenny Owen.
Kenny had been taught how to manufacture methamphetamine by a Shell oil chemist, so he knew very well how to manufacture methamphetamine.
His meth was, people always say pure, it's pretty hard to get 100%, but that was the rumor, that his meth was the best.
In Oakland, they set up labs and they got really cautious. Kenny Owens, the most cautious of them all. They had labs all over the place. Kenny Owens had equipment downtown in his warehouse, but it was built behind a secret wall. No one had ever seen it.
The initial concept was that Tait was going to go and make controlled purchases of methamphetamine.
Kenny Owen would only sell to people that he knew on the street, and so it was very, very difficult for law enforcement to penetrate that.
Part of the architecture was to promote him as a significant drug dealer, someone who could buy, weight, and distribute it. And so you learn to have a story on what would make sense to a dealer.
The first thing that we had to do was for me to get around and get known amongst people. The persona we created was a high roller drug dealer.
You have to give the Hells Angels something they expect to see. We weren't buying street level drugs, so street knowledge wasn't gonna cut it. He had to know the mid to upper level range of transactions, dealing in multi-pounds and multi-kilos. The Bureau narcotics agents had the current prices, the current slang words, and they shared that with Tait.
There were people behind him who fed him scripts. Every time he talked to someone, it was scripted. So the agents controlled him completely.
I'd get invited to go out to dinner with the Oakland charter, but I'd order like 3 or 4 entrees and take a bite or 2 out of each one and then pass it around. Or if wine came and I didn't like it, I'd order 2 or 3 bottles of another type of wine. I was the high-rolling guy that didn't do drugs and took care of myself. That garnered a lot of trust and a lot of confidence.
You become one of them. And so they like you more. They trust you more. They're okay with selling you drugs.
Tony Tait was the first active Hells Angel to be an informant for law enforcement. This was the first time that they had a live asset inside the organization.
To try to make recordings on these guys, to make buys from them, you're double dealing them the whole time. So if Tony Tait gets found out, he's dead out in the wilderness in Alaska. He's barefooted.